place now that we're in a very dark place in America, where we have a bully and a thug who's the President of the United States.
When Richard Gere speaks, people listen, but no one expected him to jump into the ring and take direct shots at Donald Trump, calling him a bully and a thug. The soft-spoken, famously kind Hollywood star isn't exactly known for stirring up political drama, but this was a full-on attack, and it revived a celebrity feud that had been brewing since 2025. Forget the usual calm diplomatic approach. This wasn't just an offhand remark. This was a fight, and now everyone's watching to see what happens next.
About the tragedy that we're all experiencing in the US. I mean, the worst of it was a week ago when he decided to completely dismantle and destroy USAID, which is the wing of the US government that was started around the time of Ronald Reagan, I believe.
It's almost unbelievable to think that Richard Gere and Donald Trump are feuding. Gere, a man known for his peaceful spiritual lifestyle, is now caught up in a public clash with Trump, who thrives on chaotic all-caps online rants. Gere seems like the last person on earth to engage in a high-profile celebrity spat, especially in 2025. He's built a reputation as calm, introspective, and zen, almost like a human meditation app wrapped in designer scarves. And yet, here we are, Hollywood's most serene leading man versus America's loudest online warrior. It's a matchup no one saw coming, and now the whole world is waiting to see how it plays out.
Our president has pushed it to the limit. It can't go any further than this. I mean, he came out of reality show television. He's like a game show person. There's no truth to it. There's no center to it.
For years, Richard Gere has been the embodiment of quiet philanthropy and spiritual reflection. His legacy isn't built on scandals or public feuds, but on his dedication to charity, his deep connection to Tibetan Buddhism, and his heartfelt speeches about love and compassion. If there's anyone who could stand in front of a crowd, talk about kindness with a flower tucked behind his ear, and make you truly believe in it, it's Richard Gere. His message has always been one of peace, unity, and understanding, the kind of words you'd expect from a man who spent decades advocating for human rights, global harmony, and the Dalai Lama's teachings, which makes this clash with Trump even more bizarre, because if Richard Gere, Hollywood's unofficial ambassador of love and enlightenment, felt the need to publicly call Trump a bully and a thug, then something really struck a nerve.
The number of hate crimes in the US went up enormously as soon as Donald Trump started running for president.
On the other side, there's Donald Trump, a man whose entire persona revolves around never backing down from a fight. He's like a reality show villain, a billionaire permanently glued to Twitter X, and somehow a former president, all rolled into one. Trump's approach to conflict is simple and predictable. If you so much as annoy him, he'll fire off an angry, all-caps social media post packed with over-the-top insults, self-praise, and a sprinkle of conspiracy theories. It doesn't matter who he's fighting, politicians, celebrities, entire news networks, or even a shrub. Yes, at one point he actually feuded with a bush. So if Richard Gere, a man best known for peace, meditation, and soft-spoken wisdom, has suddenly found himself in Trump's crosshairs, then we all know exactly what's coming next. A long, furious, and slightly pathetic rant, one that Trump will insist isn't a big deal, even as he posts about it non-stop.
My wife is in shock. We're all in shock. It was, all the people spoke and they elected this president. And that's a fact. But I don't even think the people who elected him really believed that he was going to do what he said he was going to do.
The real entertainment in this feud comes from how hilariously mismatched it is. Gere would deliver a subtle, elegant insult, using sophisticated language about self-awareness and personal growth. He might say something like, "True strength comes from within, not from dominance over others," leaving his opponent quietly questioning their life choices. Trump, on the other hand, he'd slap on a childish two-word insult, something like "loser Gere" or "boring Richard," as if he were naming a cartoon villain instead of fighting a Hollywood icon. icon. It's like watching a peaceful poet accidentally step into a wrestling ring only to realize their opponent is a furious chair-throwing giant. One side is armed with wisdom, reflection, and soft-spoken intellect. The other, all caps rants, personal jabs, and a refusal to let anything go. And that's exactly why this fight is so entertaining, because Gere is playing chess and Trump is just flipping the board over.
To say it, but these clowns who are around our president are extremely immature, narcissistic people. So that kind of power in narcissism is deadly.
The most shocking part of this feud is that no one even knew there was a problem. There was no long-running rivalry, no history of public insults, no secret tension bubbling under the surface. Richard Gere hadn't been spending years taking shots at Trump. In fact, he had mostly stayed out of the usual Hollywood versus Trump drama. And yet, out of nowhere, this happened. It was almost as if the universe decided, you know what this year needs? A completely random celebrity fight. One moment, Gere was on stage, accepting an award, probably about to deliver a heartfelt speech about love, kindness, and global unity. The next, he was casually calling a former US president a bully and a thug in front of a room full of A-list celebrities. The crowd clapped, cheered, and gasped all at once. Even those applauding were probably a little stunned, whispering to each other, "Did Richard Gere just say that?" And you know Trump was watching. Somewhere in a gilded hotel suite, Diet Coke in hand, he was probably furiously scrolling through his phone, getting ready to respond with an all-caps rant before the ceremony even ended.
Actually, we have leaders that stimulate fear, and that fear causes us to do really terrible things. I think that's part of what we're talking about in the film. The most horrible thing that Trump has done, he's conflated two words, refugee and terrorist.
Donald Trump always reacts when an older, respected actor criticizes him, especially when that actor hasn't been picking fights, but focusing on peaceful, humanitarian work instead. It's like a formula. A veteran actor speaks out, Trump explodes, and the internet turns it into a spectacle. And this time was no different. The moment the clip spread online, the internet erupted into chaos. Some people hailed Gere as a hero, praising him for standing up to Trump in a room full of Hollywood elites. Others rushed to Trump's defense, writing long dramatic articles about why actors should stay in their lane and not criticize Trump's so-called accomplishments. It was messy. It was hilarious. It was exactly the kind of drama the internet lives for. Everything seemed to be going exactly as expected, until it wasn't, because in reality, this night wasn't supposed to be about politics at all. The award ceremony was meant to be a celebration of Gere's legacy, a carefully planned, sentimental event filled with fond memories, soft music, and nostalgic clips of his most beloved movie roles. The audience had been prepared for a classic Hollywood tribute. This was supposed to be one of those elegant, predictable moments where a celebrated actor humbly reflects on his career, talks about the magic of storytelling, and shares a gentle speech about the power of movies to change the world. There would be clips of him rescuing animals, supporting charities, meditating in beautiful landscapes, all leading to a heartfelt, modest acceptance speech. That's how it was supposed to go. Instead, Richard Gere took the mic and set the whole night on fire.
Administration is pulling back from all of those human responsibilities, and it seems all he cares about is money.
But on that night, Richard Gere seemed to have something else in mind. Standing at the microphone, he looked every bit the wise, peaceful Hollywood veteran, his silver hair neatly combed, his suit perfectly tailored, his demeanor calm and reflective. He started exactly as expected, speaking with his signature gentleness and thoughtfulness. His words were measured, heartfelt, and warm. He thanked his co-workers, his family, and even took a moment to acknowledge the Dalai Lama. For a solid minute and a half, it was the soft, peaceful speech everyone had been expecting. It was so serene, people were already mentally drafting their social media posts about how gracious and wise Richard Gere still was. And then, without changing his calm tone, without even a hint of warning, he casually dropped the words bully and thug. At first, the audience didn't react. The words were so unexpected, so completely out of character, that people thought they must have misheard. Some polite clapping continued, out of habit, as people processed what had just happened. And then it hit them. Richard Gere had just declared war. The audience shifted in their seats, eyes widened, whispers spread across the room. This was not just another Hollywood tribute. This was Richard Gere, a man known for his zen-like peace and calm, stepping directly into the ring. He had just started a fight, one that no one saw coming.
Much worse than what he even said. The profundity, the dark profundity of what he's been doing in the last week is mind-boggling. This is dark time in the U.S., and I think it's a time for everyone to step.
The room hummed with quiet shock, an uneasy mix of nervous wine sips, hesitant glances, and the collective question, should we clap? It was the kind of tension that only happens when someone completely goes off script at a polished high society event. But Gere? He remained cool as a Zen master. He dropped the line like it was nothing. Not a pause, not a flicker of hesitation. Then, with the smoothness of someone who had spent years meditating on patience and composure, he seamlessly pivoted back to talking about world peace, as if he hadn't just set social media on fire. It was brutal in its effortlessness. Only someone truly at peace with themselves, or secretly enjoying the chaos they just caused, could have pulled off a moment like that. And then, as if on cue, the front rows stood up. These were the Hollywood elite, the people who would enthusiastically cheer for anything that felt right in the moment. It didn't matter if they had fully processed what had happened. They could sense it was important, that it was bold, and most importantly, that it was going viral. And online, pure madness. Within minutes, clips flooded Twitter, X, and TikTok. Opinions erupted like wildfire, and some young, overly caffeinated designer was already slapping Gere's face onto a fresh batch of viral memes. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was still sitting there, blinking, trying to process what they had just witnessed.
A universe of overlapping pain and sadness and joy and expectations and dreams and hopes and visions. And I see this world that we're in now forgetting that. And this kind of very foolish tribalism is starting to take us over, where we think we're all separate from each other. And we have unfortunately elected officials that don't inspire us in the way we want to be inspired.
Richard Gere, much like a glowing salt lamp in a dimly lit yoga studio, radiated an aura of unexpected brilliance as he effortlessly placed a former president under an unforgiving spotlight. It was as if he were hosting a laid-back poetry reading in Venice Beach, speaking softly but carrying a verbal dagger. But for those who know Gere beyond his silver screen charm, this wasn't some impulsive offhand remark. This moment had been years in the making. On the surface, he appears to be the embodiment of peace. A man who wakes up at sunrise to meditate, whispers affirmations to his houseplants, and moves through life with the tranquility of a Tibetan monastery. But beneath that serene exterior, Gere has never been afraid to challenge power. His strategy is subtle yet devastating. He doesn't shout or throw punches. He makes you feel bad for disagreeing. And this isn't new. Long before celebrity activism was a profitable social media trend, Gere was risking his career for his beliefs. At the Oscars, in front of millions, he boldly called out China's human rights abuses during an award presentation and was promptly banned from the ceremony. That moment proved what Hollywood learned again tonight. Richard Gere may look like the gentle, aging heartthrob from a classic romance film, but when he decides to speak out, he doesn't just criticize, he dismantles.
Used to be someone that we had empathy for, used to be someone we cared about, someone we wanted to help, that we wanted to give refuge to, a refugee. We wanted to help. Now we're afraid of them. And this is something that's the biggest crime in itself, conflating these two ideas.
Back in 1993, when actors mostly used their acceptance speeches to thank their agents and studios, Richard Gere did something different. Instead of following the script, he used the Academy Award stage to call for Tibetan independence, openly challenging China's government in front of millions. It was a bold move, one that got him banned from the Oscars, but that wasn't the only time Gere put his beliefs before his career. He has spent decades taking risks for causes he believes in. He didn't just talk about compassion, he actively challenged power. When the Catholic Church resisted AIDS awareness efforts, Gere didn't hold back. He called them out on their stance against contraception, arguing that saving lives should always come before religious doctrine. Yet despite his history of speaking out against major institutions, he has never been seen as an aggressive activist. Somehow he remains Hollywood's nice guy, a proof that you can be blunt, rebellious, and completely unapologetic about your beliefs if you deliver your message with grace and sincerity. And now, Gere has turned his attention to Donald Trump, the ultimate opposite of everything he stands for. If Gere is about humility, self-awareness, and caring for others, Trump is about ego, control, and power at any cost. It almost feels like an inevitable clash, a spiritual force meeting an immovable ego. For someone like Gere, caring about everyone isn't just a belief, it's his entire identity, and Trump, he might just be Gere's biggest challenge yet.
Problem with him. His impulses are diametrically opposed to what we have evolved as human beings and as a country. But he's not unique, and we see this around the world, that these movements to withdraw, to retreat, to challenge the basic laws of nature, the laws of physics, that we are all in this together.
Gere had never been on board with Trump's policies. His views on immigration, climate change, and the treatment of minorities weren't just disagreements. To Gere, they represented fear-driven, self-serving power grabs. These were the kinds of oppressive tactics he had quietly opposed for decades. While Trump built his brand on the idea that kindness is weakness, Gere had spent his entire life proving the opposite, that compassion, humanity, and defending the vulnerable were the true signs of strength. These two were always going to clash. It was just a matter of when. So when Gere finally spoke out, when he called Trump a bully and a thug on a stage filled with Hollywood elites, it wasn't some random celebrity outburst. It was the culmination of a lifetime spent standing up for others. And if Trump thought he could brush it off, he completely underestimated Gere's ability to deliver a sharp, devastating critique without raising his voice or breaking a sweat. The internet, of course, reacted instantly. No one loves turning a small celebrity feud into a massive cultural spectacle quite like Twitter X. By the time Gere had finished his speech, social media was already on fire. Memes were flying, hashtags were trending, and Twitter was exploding with activity before Gere had even left the stage. And just like that, Hollywood versus. Trump had a brand new headline.
Really destroying our country. They're destroying our country at the border. They will allow, in my opinion, because you don't hear the real numbers, 15 million people into our country by the time Biden gets out, which hopefully will be very soon. If they get another term, this country is finished. By the time he gets out, and the people are coming from prisons all over the world, they're coming from mental institutions all over the world, and they're terrorists, and this country is going to be suffering a very big price.
News spread like wildfire after Richard Gere publicly called Trump a thug. Social media instantly split into two camps. Those who saw Gere as a calm but sharp critic, and Trump's supporters who rushed to dismiss him as irrelevant and washed up. But the internet did what it does best, turn everything into a meme. One of the most viral posts featured Gere's face photoshopped onto the Dalai Lama with the words "inner clapbacks" written underneath. It perfectly captured his ability to deliver devastating insults in the most zen-like way possible. Then, of course, came the conspiracy theories. Some of Trump's most devoted fans cooked up a bizarre idea that Gere was part of a secret Hollywood group with an agenda to control the masses. Apparently, in their world, an actor meditating and talking about kindness was actually a coded attempt at global mind control. But the biggest question wasn't what the internet would do with the moment. It was how long it would take for Trump to explode. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that Trump can't resist a celebrity feud, and a response wasn't just likely, it was inevitable.
How weak and pathetic is a guy like...
The celebrity feud didn't just capture attention, it took over late-night television, becoming the hottest comedic material of the moment. Stephen Colbert wasted no time breaking it down, joking that this was the unexpected yet strangely necessary showdown America never knew it needed. A spiritual, soft-spoken Hollywood legend versus the loudest, most thin-skinned former president. It was practically scripted for peak entertainment. Jimmy Kimmel went even further, crowning Gere the Dalai Lama of drama. Because really, who else could deliver an insult with the grace of a meditation guru, making it sting even more because it sounded so wise? Meanwhile, Saturday Night Live reportedly considered reviving Alec Baldwin's classic Trump impression, proving that 2025 still has plenty of room for old feuds and familiar comedy gold. If anything, the idea of Trump furiously ranting about a zen-like Richard Gere was too good not to be turned into a skit. Because, let's be honest, celebrity fights have become America's favorite pastime. In a world where AI influencers blur reality, deepfake scandals make us question what's real, and algorithms control what we see. Somehow, the biggest cultural event of the year is Richard Gere versus Donald Trump. It's so random, so unpredictable, that it feels like the universe spun a wheel of celebrities and decided these two should fight next. And yet, it works, because public celebrity feuds have become our guilty pleasure. They're wilder than real news, funnier than scripted comedies, and instantly instantly meme-worthy. They're like a reality show everyone pretends they're too good for, but no one actually stops watching. And now, the Gere versus Trump saga is just the latest episode in Hollywood's never-ending drama. Except this time, it comes with a bizarre casting choice that somehow makes it even better. But here's the thing, this whole spectacle isn't just ridiculous. It has a strange, deeper meaning.
The situation in America is so confusing and complex and disheartening. On the one hand, of course, this is the President of the United States, and we want him to succeed. We want him to be a good president. Unfortunately, he doesn't display any of the qualities of a good president. This is a very humiliating time, I think, for all of us in America.
He's probably somewhere on a golf course, furiously typing out another all-caps rant between swings, gripping his phone tighter than his club, muttering to himself about Hollywood phonies and washed-up losers, while his caddy awkwardly looks away, pretending not to hear. Every few steps he pauses, squinting at his screen, shaking his head and adding more exclamation points, convinced that this post will finally set the record straight. His ball sits untouched on the green, his game forgotten, because nothing, not even golf, is more important than his latest grudge. But does anyone actually care? Not really. Like a faded movie star desperately trying to force a comeback, Trump's outrage routine has lost its punch. The once shocking rants now feel predictable, a tired script being performed for the 100th time. And yet, the internet secretly wants more. Because really, what's better than another round of absurd, over-the-top celebrity drama to distract from the world's actual problems? Talk shows are already lining up their next jokes, eagerly waiting to see what Trump will do next. Meme creators are sharpening their Photoshop skills, preparing to flood the timeline with ridiculous edits of Trump and Gere locked in a dramatic slow-motion face-off. And somewhere on TikTok, an over-caffeinated animator is already hard at work, crafting a cartoon boxing match between the two, set to epic battle music, complete with over-exaggerated punches, glowing effects, and Gere delivering a knockout line about inner peace. So if this really is the most ridiculous celebrity feud of the year, we might as well sit back and enjoy the show. The world may be a chaotic mess, but at least we have two wealthy, aging men arguing for our entertainment. And honestly, that's better than most reality TV.